Have you ever found yourself staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wrestling with that crushing weight of existential emptiness? That piercing question that cuts through your soul like a blade. Does my life actually matter in this vast universe? Picture this moment. You're standing on a beach, watching endless waves crash before you, feeling utterly insignificant compared to the boundless cosmos stretching above. Suddenly, that inner voice whispers relentlessly, "Where do I fit in all of this? What's my real reason for being here? Is there any genuine purpose driving my existence?" This isn't just some modern-day identity crisis. This represents humanity's most ancient inquiry, the identical question that haunted Greek philosophers, Renaissance thinkers, and millions of souls, asking this very question at this exact moment across the globe. But here's where we diverge. Today, we're not settling for abstract theories or hollow philosophical concepts. Today, we're unveiling the answer that has revolutionized countless lives throughout human history. The answer that doesn't merely satisfy your intellect, but completely transforms your entire being. Are you ready to discover that your existence isn't some cosmic accident? That every breath you take, every heartbeat pulsing through your chest, every choice you make carries universal significance far beyond anything you've ever imagined? Because what you're about to uncover isn't merely data, it's complete transformation, not just facts, it's personal revolution. In the coming moments, we're going to unravel the universe's deepest mystery. Why did the Almighty create you? What is your divine calling? And how can you live the extraordinary life you were specifically designed for? Buckle up, because your existence will never be the same again. Let's begin our journey at history's most magnificent moment, the instant of creation itself. But first, I want you to consider this question. Have you ever noticed the mathematical precision woven throughout our universe? The fact that Earth sits at exactly the perfect distance from our sun to support life, that our oceans contain precisely the right salinity levels, that our atmosphere maintains the exact chemical composition necessary for survival? Scientists refer to this as the anthropic principle. The odds of all these conditions aligning randomly are so astronomically small they're essentially impossible. What does this reveal? That from the very beginning, there was an intentional design. When the Almighty spoke and the heavens and earth burst into existence, this wasn't some cosmic experiment. This wasn't a random explosion that accidentally resulted in order. This was the careful and deliberate unfolding of a master blueprint. Imagine an architect designing a magnificent cathedral. Every pillar, every arch, every stained glass window serves a specific purpose. There are no accidental elements. Everything works in perfect harmony to create something sublime. Our universe operates the same way. Every galaxy, every star, every planet, every atom was positioned with divine precision. But from all this magnificent creation, there was something the Creator was saving for the grand finale. On the sixth day, when everything was perfectly prepared, when the stage was set, the Almighty did something completely different. But before we continue, share this video with someone you care about. Our greatest mission on earth is spreading the Lord's word. Did you know many people lack knowledge simply because they don't have access to proper content? Send it to that WhatsApp group or post it on Facebook. I'm confident you won't regret it. And if you enjoy videos like this one, comment below, "I want more." That way I'll know you truly appreciate this content, and I'll definitely bring you similar new material. He didn't speak another creature into existence like he had done with animals and plants. Instead, he became personally involved. He took dust from the earth with his own hands and formed something completely unique. Not just another creature, not just another planet inhabitant, but someone who could reflect his own divine essence. Genesis 1:27 captures this monumental moment. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. Do you realize the magnitude of this declaration? Of all creatures throughout the known universe, only human beings received this supreme honor. Being created in God's image and likeness. This means you're not just another evolved mammal. You're not just a fortunate combination of atoms. You're not just the result of random biological processes. You are a divine masterpiece. You are creation's crown jewel. You are the earthly reflection of heavenly glory. And this absolutely transforms everything about how you should view yourself and how you should live your life. Now, let's dive deeper into what it truly means to be created in God's image. Because this isn't just a beautiful phrase in an ancient book. This is the key to understanding your true identity and your supreme purpose. First, let's clarify something important. We're not talking about physical resemblance. God is spirit, and his image within us is spiritual, mental, emotional, and moral. Think about this. You possess the ability to reason in complex ways. You can solve abstract problems, imagine futures that don't exist, create art that expresses profound emotions. The most intelligent animals can learn tricks, but have you ever seen a chimpanzee write poetry? Have you witnessed a dolphin compose a symphony? Have you observed an eagle contemplating life's meaning? Only you, as a human being, can accomplish these things. You have the capacity to love sacrificially, not just instinctive survival love, but love that chooses another's well-being above your own. Love that forgives when wounded. Love that serves expecting nothing in return. You have the ability to choose morally. In every decision you face, you can choose between good and evil, between right and wrong. This capacity for moral discernment is exclusively human, but there's something even more extraordinary. You have the ability to connect with the transcendent. You can worship. You can pray. You can experience the sacred. Have you noticed that human beings, regardless of their culture or geographic location, have always sought the divine? From the most ancient civilizations to the most modern societies, humanity has built temples, has prayed, has searched for meaning beyond the material. Why? Because we were designed for connection with our Creator. This universal search for the sacred isn't a psychological weakness or emotional crutch. It's evidence that we were created for relationship with the Almighty. Consider also your capacity for self-awareness. You can reflect on your own thoughts. You can evaluate your own behavior. You can imagine how others perceive you. You can question your own existence. This metacognition, the ability to think about thinking, is what enables personal growth, character transformation, and spiritual development. Now, observe how humanity has transformed the world. We've created soul-stirring art, Michelangelo's paintings, Bach's music, Shakespeare's literature. We've built architectural marvels that defy gravity. We've developed technologies that allow us to communicate instantly with people on the opposite side of the planet. We've explored ocean depths and space vastness. We've cured diseases that were once fatal. We've developed justice systems, charitable organizations, human rights movements. Where does all this creativity, this compassion, this pursuit of justice and beauty come from? It comes from God's image within us. Every time you create something beautiful, you reflect the Creator. Every time you act with justice, you reflect the perfect judge. Every time you love sacrificially, you reflect the God of love. But here's the part that can transform your life forever. This divine image isn't something only privileged few possess while others don't. Every human being, without exception, carries this image. It doesn't matter your race, your gender, your socioeconomic status, your education, your past, or your mistakes. God's image within you is inalienable. It's your fundamental dignity. It's your intrinsic value. This means every person you encounter today carries the Almighty's image. The cashier at the grocery store, the bus driver, your boss, your neighbor, and even that person who irritated you this morning, all of them are divine image bearers. How would this change your way of treating others if you truly believed it? From Adam's first breath in the Garden of Eden, it became clear that the Almighty didn't want subjects who feared him from a distance. He didn't want robots programmed to obey him without choice. He wanted something much more beautiful and meaningful. He wanted authentic relationship. Imagine the scene. The Creator of the universe, the one who spoke galaxies into existence, walking in the garden's coolness, seeking his human creation's company. "Where are you?" the Almighty asked when Adam hid after sinning. Not because he didn't know Adam's location. God is omniscient, but because he wanted to restore communication, renew the connection that had been broken. This divine pursuit of relationship reveals something profound about our purpose. We were created for intimacy with the Almighty, but there's something fascinating here. The Almighty, being perfectly complete in himself, didn't need our company. The Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit already existed in perfect eternal communion. So why create us? Out of pure love. From the desire to share his love, his joy, his glory, with beings who could appreciate it and reciprocate it freely. Think about a couple who decides to have children. They don't have children because they lack something. They have them because genuine love seeks to expand, to share itself, to create new relationships of love. This was the case with the Almighty and humanity. We were created as objects of his love and as subjects capable of loving him back. But here's the key. This love had to be free to be genuine. The Almighty could have created beings who loved him automatically without the option to do otherwise. But that wouldn't be real love, that would be programming. True love requires the freedom to choose. It requires the possibility of saying no for the yes to have meaning. That's why the Almighty created humans with free will, because he wanted our love to be authentic, not forced. This freedom was an incredible gift, but it also came with tremendous risks. And as we'll see later, those risks materialized when humanity chose to turn away from the Almighty. But even knowing we would risk turning away, the Almighty decided it was worth it, because the possibility of a genuine love relationship was worth the risk of rejection. This is the nature of divine love. It's willing to be vulnerable for the sake of relationship. And when we understand this, we begin to comprehend the depth of our purpose. We weren't created simply to exist. We were created to love and be loved by the very God of the universe. Every time you experience the longing for deep connection, every time you search for meaning beyond the material, every time you feel there must be something more to life, you're experiencing the echo of this original design. You were designed for communion with the Almighty. And until you find that connection, you'll always feel something is missing, no matter how much success, money, or recognition you have. As St. Augustine said, "You have made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you." Now we come to one of the most tragic and transformative moments in all human history, a moment that changed the course of everything: humanity's fall. Imagine the perfection of the Garden of Eden. There was no death, no pain, no conflict, no separation. Adam and Eve lived in perfect harmony with the Almighty, with each other, and with all creation. They had direct access to the Creator. They could converse with him face to face. There were no barriers, no guilt, no shame. It was the complete realization of the divine purpose for humanity. But then the unthinkable occurred. We have a spiritual resource for you: Paths of Revelation, a book for understanding prophecies and strengthening your faith. You'll find it in the first comment. Read it, share it, and prepare yourself spiritually for what's coming. Don't wait for another disaster to force you to look up. Today is the acceptable day. Today is the time to act with faith. Strengthen yourself in the Word, deepen your prayer life, and surround yourself with people who are also seeking the Almighty with all their hearts. Despite having everything they could need or desire, despite living in literal paradise, despite having a perfect relationship with the Almighty, Adam and Eve chose to disobey. It wasn't just breaking an arbitrary rule. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil represented something much deeper: trust. The Almighty had said, "Trust me, I know what's best for you. There's a boundary you shouldn't cross, not because I want to control you, but because I want to protect you." But the serpent whispered a seductive lie. Did the Almighty really say, "You surely won't die"? The Almighty knows that when you eat from this fruit, you'll be like him, knowing good and evil. And in that crucial moment, humanity chose to doubt the Almighty's goodness. They chose to believe the Almighty was hiding something good from them. They chose to think they knew better than their Creator. They chose autonomy over dependence. And with that choice, everything changed. Sin wasn't just a stain on Adam and Eve's record. It was like a virus that infected all human nature. The Almighty's image within us became distorted. Direct communication with the Almighty was severed. The world's perfect harmony was shattered. For the first time in history, humanity experienced guilt, the awareness of having done something wrong; shame, the feeling that something was fundamentally wrong with them; fear, terror of facing the consequences of their actions; separation, the rupture of the perfect relationship with the Almighty. And these weren't just temporary consequences. They were wounds transmitted to all human descendants. Each of us is born with this fallen nature, with this tendency toward selfishness, toward rebellion, toward autonomy from the Almighty. But here's what fascinates me about this story. Even in the moment of greatest betrayal and disobedience, the Almighty didn't respond with abandonment. He didn't respond with destructive anger. He didn't erase humanity and start over. Instead, the Almighty did something that reveals the depth of his love. He immediately began working on a rescue plan. In Genesis 3:15, in the midst of pronouncing sin's consequences, the Almighty makes history's first messianic promise: "I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel." This was the first clue that someone would come who would reverse the curse, who would crush evil's power, who would restore what had been lost. The redemption plan wasn't a plan B. It was something the Almighty had considered before the world's foundation. This shows us that even when we fail completely, even when we choose to turn away from the Almighty, His love for us doesn't diminish. His commitment to our well-being remains unshakable, and this is crucial for understanding our purpose today. Despite the fall, despite sin, despite our personal failures, the Almighty's original purpose for us wasn't canceled. It's waiting to be restored. Before continuing with the redemption story, we need to understand something fundamental about the Almighty's original design for humanity. We were created for relationship, not just individual existence. It is not good for man to be alone, the Almighty declared. And these words reveal something profound about human nature and about the Almighty's own nature. When the Almighty created Eve from Adam's rib, He wasn't solving a last-minute problem. He was completing His perfect design for humanity. Woman wasn't created as an afterthought or as a solution to Adam's loneliness. She was created as the culmination of the Almighty's creative work. Observe Adam's words when he first saw Eve. "This at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh." It wasn't just relief at having company. It was recognition of finding his perfect complement, his equal, his companion designed specifically for him. Together, man and woman reflected something neither could reflect separately: the Almighty's communal nature Himself. The Almighty exists in perfect communion as Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Three distinct persons, but one unified Almighty, living in perfect unity and love. Marriage between man and woman was designed to be an earthly reflection of this divine unity. It's no coincidence that Paul in Ephesians 5 compares marriage to the relationship between Christ and the Church. This elevates marriage beyond a simple social contract or emotional convenience. It's a sacred institution, a reflection of the Almighty's very nature, a living demonstration of what sacrificial love looks like in action. But this also teaches us something important about all of us, married or single. We were designed for community. We weren't created to be islands. We weren't designed for isolation. We were created to live in relationship with the Almighty, with others, with creation itself. This is why isolation is so damaging to the human soul. This is why loneliness is one of the most painful experiences we can face. Needing connection isn't weakness, it's divine design. When the Almighty gave Adam and Eve dominion over the earth, He wasn't giving them a license for exploitation. He was granting them sacred stewardship. Fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. The word subdue doesn't imply tyrannical domination. In the original context, it means to cultivate, care for, wisely manage. Imagine the Almighty as the owner of a vast estate, and humanity as the trusted managers. A good manager doesn't exploit the property for personal benefit. They care for it, improve it, protect it, and make it more productive for the owner's benefit. This means every natural resource, every ecosystem, every animal species is under our responsible care. When we protect the environment, when we develop sustainable technologies, when we care for animals, we're fulfilling part of our original divine purpose. But stewardship extends beyond environmental care. It encompasses everything the Almighty has placed under our care, our talents and abilities. Are you using them to benefit others, or only for personal gain? Our financial resources. How do you manage the money the Almighty has entrusted to you? Do you live generously toward those in need? Our time. Do you use your time in ways that honor the Almighty and serve others? Our relationships. Do you care for and nurture the relationships the Almighty has placed in your life? Our opportunities. Do you take advantage of opportunities you have to do good? Stewardship also extends to caring for other human beings, especially the most vulnerable. When we care for orphans, when we protect the elderly, when we defend the oppressed, when we serve the poor, we're living the stewardship purpose for which we were created. Jesus Himself summarized this principle when He said, "From everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded." Every blessing, every opportunity, every resource you have isn't just for your benefit. It's an opportunity to reflect the Almighty's generous and caring character. This perspective completely transforms how we view our possessions, our abilities, even our lives themselves. We're not owners, we're managers. And one day we'll give an account of how we managed what was entrusted to us. How would your life change if you lived every day with this stewardship awareness? How would your financial decisions change? Your career choices, your relationships, your treatment of the environment? This isn't just responsibility, it's privilege. It's the opportunity to participate in the Almighty's ongoing care of creation. Despite the fall, despite sin, despite the separation humanity chose, There's a truth that shines through all human history. The Almighty never abandoned His original plan for us. Throughout the centuries, we see glimpses of hope. People who chose to reflect the Almighty's image despite living in a fallen world. Consider Noah, who in the midst of a completely corrupt generation, chose to walk with the Almighty and became the instrument of humanity's preservation. Think about Abraham, who believed the Almighty's promises even when they seemed impossible, and became the father of faith. Reflect on David, who despite his significant failures, was called a man after the Almighty's own heart, because his life showed a genuine desire for connection with his Creator. Consider Daniel, who maintained his integrity and faith even in a hostile culture, demonstrating that it's possible to live with divine purpose regardless of circumstances. Each of these people shows us that even in a broken world, it's possible to live in ways that reflect the Almighty's character. But all these stories were just shadows, just indicators of something much greater that was coming. And then came the definitive answer. After centuries of promises, after generations of waiting, after countless sacrifices that could only point toward something better, Jesus arrived. In John 14:6, Jesus makes a declaration that changed the course of human history. I am the way, and the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Jesus didn't come simply as another religious teacher. He didn't come only as a moral example. He came as the complete solution to the problem of human sin. He was the fulfilled promise of Genesis 3:15. He was the descendant who would crush the serpent's head. He was the way back to the Father that humanity had lost. But here's what's revolutionary. Jesus didn't just come to forgive sin. He came to completely restore humanity's original purpose. In His life, Jesus demonstrated what it means to live as a perfect human being. He showed what it looks like to perfectly reflect the Almighty's image. Every miracle He performed was a demonstration of the Almighty's power. Every word He spoke reflected divine wisdom. Every act of compassion revealed the Father's heart. But then came the supreme moment, the cross. At Calvary, Jesus took upon Himself all the consequences of human sin. He experienced the separation from the Almighty that we deserved. He paid the price we couldn't pay. And when He cried, "It is finished," He wasn't just declaring that His suffering had ended. He was announcing that the work of redemption was complete. But the story didn't end at the cross. It ended at the empty tomb. Jesus' resurrection wasn't just a demonstration of power. It was the definitive declaration that death had been conquered, that sin had been defeated, that the way back to the Father was open. Through faith in Christ, we can be completely forgiven for our sins, restored to a right relationship with the Almighty, regenerated with a new spiritual nature, renewed in our capacity to reflect the Almighty's image, reconciled to our original purpose. This means your past doesn't determine your future. It doesn't matter how many mistakes you've made. It doesn't matter how far you've strayed from the Almighty. It doesn't matter how broken you feel. Through Jesus, you can begin again. You can be restored. You can live the purpose for which you were created. This is the essence of the gospel. It's not just about going to heaven when you die. It's about living divine purpose here and now. Now we come to the practical question we all ask. Okay, I understand I was created with a purpose, but what does that look like in my daily life? Paul gives us the answer in 1 Corinthians 10:31. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. Notice he doesn't say when you go to church or when you do religious things. He says whatever. This means every moment of your life can be an expression of worship. Every decision can reflect the Almighty's character. Every action can fulfill your divine purpose. Let me give you concrete examples. A mother who gets up at 3 a.m. to care for her sick baby is glorifying the Almighty through her sacrificial love. A student who chooses to study diligently instead of procrastinating is glorifying the Almighty through discipline and excellence. An entrepreneur who treats employees with justice and generosity is glorifying the Almighty through integrity. A doctor who treats every patient with compassion, regardless of their ability to pay, is glorifying the Almighty through service. An artist who creates beauty that elevates the human spirit is glorifying the Almighty through creativity. An engineer who designs technology that improves others' lives is glorifying the Almighty through innovation. Do you see the pattern? It's not about the work you do, but how you do it. You can glorify the Almighty as a grocery store cashier, treating every customer with respect and kindness, a bus driver, safely transporting people to their destinations, a teacher, investing in your students' future. Here's what will completely transform your perspective. Your purpose isn't limited to your profession or your current circumstances. Your divine calling transcends any job title, any social status, any life situation you find yourself in. Every single day presents countless opportunities to fulfill your highest purpose. When you choose patience over anger in traffic, you're reflecting the Almighty's character. When you speak words of encouragement to someone who's struggling, you're channeling divine love. When you choose honesty in a situation where lying would benefit you, you're demonstrating heavenly integrity. Your purpose is woven into the fabric of ordinary moments. It's in how you respond when someone cuts in line, how you treat the person serving your coffee, how you handle criticism, how you celebrate others' successes. These seemingly small choices are actually monumental expressions of your divine calling. The extraordinary truth is that the Almighty doesn't need you to do spectacular things to fulfill your purpose. He needs you to be faithful in the ordinary, excellent in the everyday, and loving in the mundane. When you grasp this reality, every moment becomes sacred, every interaction becomes meaningful, and every day becomes an opportunity to live out your cosmic significance. Consider this profound reality. Every choice you make to live according to your divine purpose creates ripple effects that extend far beyond what you can see. That moment of kindness you showed to a stranger might be exactly what they needed to restore their faith in humanity. That patient word you spoke to your child in a moment of frustration might shape their character for decades to come. When you live aligned with your divine purpose, you become part of a much larger story, the story of the Almighty's love transforming the world one heart at a time. Your life becomes a thread in a magnificent tapestry that spans generations, cultures, and continents. The choices you make today will echo through eternity, influencing people you'll never meet and touching lives in ways you'll never fully comprehend. This is the breathtaking reality of your existence. You're not just living for today, you're building a legacy that will outlast your physical presence on this earth. Every act of love, every moment of integrity, every choice to reflect the Almighty's character is depositing treasure in an eternal account that can never be diminished or destroyed. Your purpose isn't just about your personal fulfillment. It's about participating in the transformation of the entire world.